being other things.
Yeah, that's good.
Jenna, I really like your work. I worked with the children's choir at Michigan State before I came here, and saw a lot of your stuff on YouTube and everything, and just you do a great job. So
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's really
yeah,
good to hear. Thank you.
the children's choir world is definitely a different thing, but I enjoyed it very much while I was there. So.
Oh, thanks.
Jenna,
Yes. Did someone say money?
someone did, but I don't think it was any of us.
Sorry, it was the live stream. It's like a few
Okay.
seconds behind and I just turned the volume down.
Oh,
If
I
I
thought.
turn my volume down on the live stream, that's not going to turn the actual volume down on the live stream, right?
No.
No, right? I didn't mute it. I just turned it all down. Jeez, I should not be in charge of things like this. All right. I know, Jenna, we really want you to move to Pennsylvania to franchise I Sing Here.
I just keep telling you, you should do that, Joy.
I know, but it's like, I Sing would be the most amazing thing for this region, but it's also a full-time job plus another full-time job.
It is. Well, if you ever have like a whiz bang student.
I know. When I do, I'll send him train up with you. Yeah. So it looks like we have quite a number of participants. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's probably time to get started here.
Oh, 106, yeah, cool.
Yeah. That's the most
limit.
Yeah. So we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar sponsored by ACDA of Pennsylvania. My name's Joy Mead, and I'm the Director of Choral Activities at Messiah University and the President-elect Designate and Conference Chair of Pennsylvania ACDA. And I'm really pleased to welcome you here tonight. We have 5 wonderful panelists who have graciously volunteered their wisdom and time. And while none of us claim to be choral pandemic experts, all 5 of these panelists are extremely creative and optimistic and innovative and excited and hardworking about their plans for this fall. All 5 panelists kind of cover the gamut from young children all the way through church choirs and community choirs. And so hopefully this panel will provide you with ideas that will spark more ideas and kind of just start you collecting your thoughts for what is practical this fall. The panel, this webinar is organized with 5 questions in mind. So each of our panelists will take turns answering them, and that's how this will go. If for some reason you're watching, but your friend is texting you and saying, I can't get onto this webinar, it's because it's limited the number of people who are able to participate, but this webinar is being live streamed. So you can ask them just to check their email, and there's a link sent in their email to the YouTube live stream, and they can find it there. So without further ado, let's jump right into this content. I'm just going to ask each panelist, would you mind introducing yourselves to us? And would you just share some of the goals you have for this fall?
Sure. My name's Eric Clayton. I'm the choir director at State College Area High School in State College, Pennsylvania. And as we're looking towards the fall, our district has really been working overtime to figure out ways to keep students safe in school. And so we've been kind of getting updates almost weekly about what actual school time is going to look like. So not knowing specifics, my overall goals are first and foremost to make sure that students are feeling connected, because I think that's going to be the most difficult thing in this time and age with all of the issues with COVID-19, is that these students can feel very isolated. I'm particularly concerned about my freshman students that are going to be entering high school for the first time, and them feeling connected to the building and to the choral program. And really important to that is going to be having student leaders be involved in that, so that Zoom meetings have a kind of max number that can be useful for those social experiences. So figuring out student leaders and how to make that a part of our fall. And the other thing that I want to do is kind of work with remote learning. And what that to me means is being able to focus on individual students a bit more. It might mean less repertoire, but it'll mean more attention to each individual student. So those students in a 100-person choir that are there, and you might hear their voices once in a while, now you can really hear them sing depending on the technology you're using. So individual growth and creating still some feeling of social bonding between each other are my two main goals.
I'll go next. I'm Ryan Kelly. I'm at Westchester University. I'm also the director of music at my church out in Bryn Mawr, PA. So I have two very different groups of singers that I'm working with. At the university, we're pleased right now to be able to be planning for ensembles to be rehearsing in person this fall. For our larger ensembles, those will only be able to rehearse in person outdoors. And so we are looking forward to being able to do that as best as we can. And within that context, our hope is for as long as we can to give them the best opportunities to sing, the best training that we can in the amount of time that we have with them, help them grow as much as we can, and with the church singers, for those that are interested and willing to and wanting to come back. Many of them have been distanced from each other for months, and they are craving some personal relationships and the opportunities to meet with each other. So a far greater focus on supporting them interconnectedly with each other as much as with their singing and their preparations for worship services.
Kyle, do you want to jump in?
Sure. My name is Kyle Zoick, and I am the Director of Choral Activities at Lebanon Valley College, and also the Director of the Harrisburg Choral Society, which is a community chorus, and I have a church job as well. My goal for the different choirs that I serve is to bring some aspect of familiarity into their lives, if at all possible. I know that the word that we want right now is normal. We want to get back to normal, and that's just not going to happen. We don't know when. It's not going to happen right now. But I know that when I do an activity or I interact with someone and I have a familiar feeling, something that was like, oh, I just talked to my neighbor from across the street, and for some reason it made me feel really good. I just felt really great. So finding ways to make people sense familiarity is my goal.
Thanks. Jenna, you want to add some?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Delp Summers, and I'm the artistic director of I Sing Silicon Valley, which is a choir for girls based in Palo Alto, California. And we're in a different place in California. We don't have many options. We can bring kids together in groups of 12, and they must be stable groups, and kids are only allowed to choose one activity at this time, and no kids are going to school at all. So we have decided to bring grades 1 through 3 back at iSing, and I can pop into the chat our safety procedures and like a fun little video showing you how we're going to bring kids back safely. So hopefully that'll be of use to some of you. And on my end, since I'm mostly going to be doing, online teaching for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be entirely focused on artistry, and which is a huge part of our mission. And we did a pivot to solo singing in the spring. That made the most sense for us. But as their coach, I just want to push them toward a higher artistic goal. So we've planned an entirely virtual holiday concert, which we're actually excited about, and we hope is a real motivator for the kids. And they can share this with their family and friends near and far. And I know a lot of people have pivoted to a more academic model with music appreciation, lots of music theory. Of course, we do music theory, but performance and singing is breathing, and singing and breathing is core to who we are as an organization. So we're going to keep that going, even if it's online. And then for those of you who are running your own organization, we're using this as a time to look ahead. We're revisiting our strategic plan for the next 3 to 5 years. And we're dreaming about the future. We're so limited artistically right now. Hopefully your brain is exploding with great artistic ideas for the future. So we're really excited about that. And we want to share that with our kids when we have something to look forward to. And then the last one, as Eric said, is just to build community, which was really hard for us in the spring. I don't know what the situation was in Pennsylvania at that time, but kids were on Zoom like 8 hours a day. So by the time they got to me after school, they were just fried. So I'm hoping, like, with the new shared purpose of this concert experience that we're going to have together, I'm hopeful that, I'll be able to build more community. I also have a HIP intern who's going to have discussions about current events. They're going to create class values. We're going to continue to share staff videos and artistic things that we're doing at our homes. So I'm hoping that the kids have a renewed sense of excitement about singing, even though it's online.
Should I go?
Yeah, thanks.
Can you? Sure. Hi, my name is Yoon-Soo Lim. I'm the vocal director at the Hill School in Pottstown, PA, and I teach graduate students at Messiah University online. We are going to be in person starting in August 24th. And so just like what Jenna said, we hope to continue to sing and perform, but we are very limited. We could only sing outside with masks on, but I will talk later on about how we're going to be doing rehearsals and things like that. So my big themes this year are listening and moving forward. I have 2 goals. One is continue singing and making improvements. There are lots of limitations, as I said, but I believe we can model and handle the situation with care. So I'm going to actually start singing with our students, the baccalaureate service pieces. So I'm going to actually start from the very end of our school year pieces and then bringing us back. So my order of the way that I'll be teaching repertoire will be a little bit different. The way that we're going to be outside, social distancing and singing under a tent and dealing with weather differences and all of that will be very different. This spring, when we were all in survival mode, we were able to create 3 music videos, virtual choirs. And so this year, I would really like to make it better. What can we do better in terms of singing and performance and learning? I learned so much this spring in terms of what my students are learning and what they're struggling with. And so this summer, I spent a lot of time just being a student. I participated in virtual choirs and made recordings of pieces that I didn't learn before. And what my students were telling me is true. They are very hard. And my students would tell me, because you were listening to me for every recording, I had to make 20 different recordings. I totally believe them. I felt very self-conscious about making recordings and submitting somewhere to get it mastered and edited and all of that. So so I want to start with a blessing by singing baccalaureate service pieces, and I can dream that in the spring that we will not be masked or be social distanced, and we could sing together side by side. My second goal that I have is to name and place music of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color in the choral curriculum. I hope to connect to some of these composers that this year and invite them into my classroom. this spring was not only hard with COVID-19 and not being in school, but just dealing with injustice and social injustice and the issues that we face. And so I think as choral educators that we could, we could face these and we could teach and we could come alongside of our students and learn with them. So those are two of my goals.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody, for introducing yourselves and sharing kind of an overview of what you're hoping for the fall. I'm going to ask Jenna and then Ryan to answer this next question. We all can make a long list of the tough parts about this fall, but I'm wondering if we can reframe our thoughts to look for potential benefits of physically distant rehearsals. How can we make the most of this time? And some of you guys started to share that in even just your introductions, but I'm wondering, Jenna and Ryan, if you might dive into that a little deeper here.
I'll go, sure. I think, physically distant rehearsals, we decided as an org, they don't really work for young kids. The technology limitations and the burden on parents was just too much. So we are bringing kids in grades 1 through 3 back. And I'm going to pop it into the chat right now so you guys can see some of the things that we're working on as an org. Hopefully that's helpful. For me, the best benefit to distance singing and being online is that it's zero risk and that we can all be part of the broader public health efforts in our community. That is above any artistic goal that I have. I want our kids to be safe. I want our parents to be safe. One thing that I really loved about the spring was really getting to know every student's voice and helping them realize the importance of their individual contribution. Yes, recording yourself is really difficult and you might do it 25 times, but gosh, aren't you learning so much when you do it? And I think the kids, initially it was a learning curve, but everything started to improve. Self-confidence, pitch, their ability to carry a part on their own, their desire to share, not just with me, but with other people. They wanted me to post their stuff on Facebook. They were so proud of themselves. And I love that because that doesn't necessarily come in my classroom. It's a place where individuals shine as a group together. So this was just really intimately getting to know someone's voice and their capabilities, which was awesome. Listening, recording, self-assessing, getting staff feedback, the growth potential for any student is guaranteed, which is great. That's what we all want. So when you get back to singing in person, it's like having a Ferrari sitting in a garage. They're just going to be ready to rock. And one of the things that our voice teacher and I both noticed was the webcam. For some reason, when you ask a student to look in the mirror in a voice lesson, they always kind of look away, but we're programmed now as humans to look into the webcam. And it was so easy to correct things like posture. It was easy for us to say, okay, relax your forehead. Okay, try relaxing your tongue. And expression. All of a sudden, me shouting at the front of the room, think about what you're singing. I didn't have that. I didn't have to because they were looking at themselves and realizing how much more they can give and emote with a piece of music. And then the last thing is I love the people I work with. And this whole situation has made us become more connected, more reliant on each other, and more creative. And I would say if you can bring your team closer together again, when you get back to the norm, then I think you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, so our scenario right now at the university, where we will be able to sing and have our ensembles live in person. They will be distanced and with our max of 25 in the room right now for the state, which of course includes me and includes the accompanist. So the numbers keep dropping a little bit. We're down to 23, right? If we want more than that, we will be rehearsing outside, and we will do that for as much of the time as we can, weather permitting. And so as I think about what are the if we ignore the downsides and the hard parts about being distanced by a number of feet, what are the benefits that are coming to that? And of course, the first thing that comes to mind is the discipline, the self-discipline that students will start to hopefully grow in, not only in listening to carefully listening to instructions that they receive from the podium, the greater attentiveness that they will need to use with their eyes, I think will improve. The listening that they have to employ for the ensemble itself will become, the need for that will become more acute because they will be a lot farther away from people. And then ultimately, one of my hopes is that they grow in independence, even in a greater way than we are always hoping that they grow. But recognize that there is so much that they have to bring to the table when they step into their 6x6 box or whatever we're talking about for their place, that they have to be able to offer 100%, and that means coming prepared and being able to and willing to offer that vocally while they are distanced from each other. So I think the listening portion is going to be very, very significant. We will have a few other positives that we're thinking about for this semester at the university, with the situation that we are in. We are hoping to record for a streamed concert, that normally wouldn't air until December, but we are hoping to have that produced, kind of recorded and in the can by late October, far earlier than we ever were. But the shifting their focus into how do you produce something like that? What's the level of preparation that's required to record something for a very highly well produced concert, in a different way than if you were just filming a live concert. Maybe you might normally film a live concert with a stationary camera at the back, and it's streamed. Our hopes are to put more attentiveness into the production of this and teach the singers at a time in which we aren't so focused on the next performance, and refocusing on a different way. That's kind of a different take on some of the things Jenna is talking about, with some of the things produced online. We're going to do this in person, but there is going to be a lot of details that we can focus on, because we won't be looking toward really the next in-person concert that we are always behind the 8 ball for. So that's one of the good things. And I think in a small way, those of you that teach adult community choruses and or choirs or places of worship know how often singers rely very much on the 1 or 2 ringers that might be within a 5-person radius, and it will be a big challenge to those who normally do rely on people like that. And so my hope is that for those people who do rely on that we'll be able to find opportunities to work with them in vocal development and some other opportunities. Maybe that's some private coaching time and encouragement that they really can do this, and training their ears to be able to listen for things, the organ in the background, and maybe not just the person that is normally right next to them. So it'll be fun.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, Kyle and Yoon and Eric, I'm wondering if you can answer our next question for us. Sort of what we're all trying to figure out, not only like our lofty goals and our hopes and our dreams for this semester, but just the nuts and bolts of how are you running your rehearsals. And so the three of you kind of cover a wide range. Eric with a gigantic public high school choral program, and Kyle between church and community choirs and college. And Yoon has such a unique situation at the Hill School because she brings in students from all over the world who actually are in residence there. So I'm wondering if you guys could just share how you're actually going to do it.
Sure. The kind of end goal is our Christmas concert, Christmas at the Valley. It's a huge tradition and something that I hope that will be one of those familiar things that will keep people engaged and excited. Within that goal, each of the choirs, there's 3 choirs, will do one virtual choir piece for this thing. And then we'll add solos, some organ things, duets. And by duets, I mean like organ, flute type of thing. So incorporating some instrumental things to make this happen. So the way that we're going to get there, at least the plan for right now, is to rehearse in our chapel, which is a very, very large space in small groups of no bigger than 12 with masks. Masks are required on campus, and I'm also going to be wearing a face shield in addition to my mask, and I'm going to recommend it to the singers as well. When we're singing outside, it's still going to be small groups, maybe a little larger than 12, but we'll also wear masks outside. And I envisioned those small rehearsals. Within the 45 minutes to an hour of rehearsal, we would have maybe 2 different groups come in. So one group comes in, practices a section of the song, then they leave, give a little bit of lead time so that people aren't coming and going at the same time. Then the next group comes. So I'm imagining about 2 groups per normal rehearsal time. And then once we're feeling more comfortable with sections, then I would put them in quartets and octets to come and meet in groups in the same way to start to piece some of that music together. I'm also going to have my accompanists record. I've picked all accompanied music for this semester. I just want that to be a thing, so that they will have that recording and we will become really accustomed to it, which will be the recording that they sing their virtual choir recording to. So that will be another constant. Those that cannot come to rehearsal, if they're symptomatic or they've decided to stay at home, we will be live streaming those rehearsals so that they can participate from home. If we all are online, I'm going to try a bunch of different things, starting with Zoom with everyone on mute, me leading a rehearsal, them singing at home. So I wish I had more experience with all of those apps, like SoundJack is one that I'm not super familiar with, but check it out. That's the main one that I'm going to be looking into. And then finally, to continue the community building, like others have said, one thing I did last semester when we switched was I assigned them choir buddies. This was someone that they didn't really know. I paired them up and said, okay, get to know this person. And you don't have to, tell me what you've talked about, but just let me know when you talk to them. And the semester ended with them writing a letter or an email to their choir buddy and telling them what they appreciated about them. And in the feedback that I got, nearly everyone said choir buddies was awesome and we should do that when we go back to normal. So that's going to be a normal thing for me from now on, choir buddies. And it seemed to do a pretty good job at building and maintaining that community. So that's some of my plans.
Thanks. Yoon, do you want to go next?
Do you think I can share the screen? I need permission, but that's okay. Maybe I'll just start talking. I don't know if, oh, there it is. Okay. So I think I can start doing that. Okay. Can everybody see this? Okay. So I've been challenged to think of time a little differently. So to make a difference, there are some things I need to reimagine and repurpose. We have 80-minute classes in 18 or 24-day rotation. So classes ABC will have 18-day rotation, and DEFG will have 24-day rotation. So that puts some challenges to our day. Elements that I need to keep in mind for rehearsals are use of 2 locations. I actually moved to the chapel, which is huge. It seats over 500 people, so I have plenty of room, but we're not allowed to sing there. We could only sing outside. So I need to keep in mind that singing in the tent and the time to travel coming back from the tent or going to the tent from chapel. Change in teaching sequence, start at the end, baccalaureate, reframing pieces and performance platform for candlelight service and lessons and carols, and programming for Parents Weekend, possibly in the spring, and virtual choir videos version 2. Looking forward to programming music by some composers that I connected with this summer. And technology is my friend and has helped my students not only to stay connected, but for us to sing better. So I will begin the year by doing in-person training as opposed to how I did in spring, where I had to teach everything online and wasn't really sure what students got. So I will begin the year by doing an in-person training for all my singers, especially for making music videos. I hope through laying down the foundation, students will feel more confident and making their own audio and video recordings. I love using Flipgrid for assessing my singers. I plan on having them use their phones during their rehearsals. Even when they're outside, they're going to have their phones there, and I will say bars 8 through 16, please record that, and I will have a rubric on Flipgrid, what I'm looking for, so I can customize the rubric for each assessment. And it's nice that it doesn't take up space in your computer. It just gets uploaded to the Flipgrid site. I'm looking forward to focusing on Black American music. I'll be using the textbook African American Music and Introduction, edited by Melanie V. Vernon and Portia Maltzby. The BLM movement has inspired many choral conductors and teachers to educate our community. Marcus Garrett has a wonderful list of non-idiomatic choral music of Black composers on his website. Using this list, I've made a BIPOC composers Spotify playlist to use with my students. I have also started a playlist for women composers and look forward to learning and programming music by all women. As I seek and find composers, I will also be working with some students who show interest in composing this year. Future is looking really great, and I continue to look forward to helping my students to stay connected to music and you know, learning about this world. So just to go back to the other slide, audio setup I think is really important. So I have to set up audio sound system in the tent and also in the chapel, just so that we're not all shouting and not being able to hear each other. And I think the word that I really need to continue to remind it of myself is that I need to be flexible. If it rains and whatever the wall from the tent doesn't come down and we're not going to be able to sing, I need to be flexible to make sure that I could go back to the chapel and keep learning. And so the technology, some of you were and asking, I use GarageBand, Logic, FL Studio, or Ableton, whatever actually my students are using. I'm able to help them learn about that. And we actually have a studio recording studio at the school. So one by one, it will take a long time for us to make a recording, but we can take one student in there and have each person lay down a track and work on a recording. And Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, Canvas are the things that are free. Noteflight, Soundtrap are the subscription-based programs that we're using. And yeah, there are lots of really cool things online. They're, you know, for us to use. But I think just having my students stay connected and keep learning is my goal. Thank you. I'll share.
Awesome. Yun, that's really cool. You just mentioned a whole bunch of great stuff. My mind's still over it. And I think there was in the chat, there was a request for you to put the name of the book and the author in there. And I know I would like to see that too. And maybe a link to the list you said of composers. That'd be very cool. In terms of running rehearsals, I think trying to wrap my head around that is, again, the outdoors using masks is going to be policy in our district, and social distancing, and of course masks inside as well. I think what I'm really trying to boil down is, in our district, there's a feeling that we are probably not going to be in school for terribly long. It might be a month and a half. And so what can we do in that amount of time that is unique to the being in person? You know, I have a church job as well, and the priest said, you know, this moment is not our normal moment. So we should really look at it as a separate thing, and maybe not as constantly modifying what our normal thing is. So in that case, then I want to use that moment when we're all together to build some of those relationships and sing together as much as possible, but not be doing notes and rhythms. So as much as possible, using part tracks or different learning aids, especially with Canvas, which is standard for our district. So if you know about Canvas, not to get in the weeds to it, but it makes it very easy to include video, audio, any kind of thing like that. And students can submit their own recordings very, very easily, and it's easy to organize. So trying to take care of the nuts and bolts, because a lot of the artistry and expression things in terms of interacting with other voices is the thing that we miss out in virtual choir. For anybody that did it, you know what I mean? You're messing with levels. You can kind of hide someone maybe a little bit that wasn't quite with everybody else. And, you know, it's very much a production. And I think those are very important performances for publicity and for us to maintain our programs and to continue to seem to be relevant and providing what the community wants. But in terms of as choral musicians, it's not really the same thing. So anytime we're together, that's what my main focus is going to be. If we're indoor, limiting rehearsal time. So I normally have a 90-minute rehearsal or with my advanced group, or a 45-minute rehearsal. That 90-minute rehearsal, if you saw some of the research regarding wind instruments and the aerosols, past 45 minutes, things get a bit worse. So we'll definitely be limiting 45 minutes, even if we have the 90. So with those limitations, I personally also will only be seeing at most half of my students each day within the ensemble. So it's really a matter of stepping back, kind of like what Ryan said, in terms of we always had the next performance coming up. This total new mindset of repertoire, and how much repertoire is going to be comfortable for the students and is still going to bring us those learning goals. So for me personally, limiting that repertoire to allow more time to focus in on individual technique. In terms of technology, Note Flight, as was mentioned, is fantastic. Especially I teach 3 different theory courses, and man, without Note Flight, forget it. Soundtrap is great in small groups. Just watch out how many different accounts you try to have on one. I know I attempted one with 40. That does not work well. I would recommend maybe 8 max. And then of course, if you're creating a virtual concert, get familiar with Premiere or Final Cut and handling all those files in GarageBand and so on and so forth. So in terms, again, on the outdoor, I want to focus on that, what can't be done. In terms of a keyboard or pitch instrument, I'm personally going to try and push solfege as much as possible, because just from experience with the problems of outdoor, if weather comes or anything like that, and we're not going to have a permanent space that's outside, I feel more can be done with hand signs and solfege, and trying to work in that manner. So like Yoon said, planning for a holiday performance is going to be our top priority, something that we can present to the community, and also really pushing to maybe even do a performance within the first 3 weeks. Because again, this feeling that we may not be open much longer than that. So those are some of my things.
Great. Thanks everybody for sharing some of those just like basic organization things, but gets my head spinning about some great ideas, and the idea of sequencing bits of repertoire in short periods of time, I think is probably really important in this ever-changing environment. We have to be uber flexible. So I guess the next question is for all the panelists, and a lot of you have talked about this already, but if you just want to go quickly through just a project or some repertoire that you're choosing for a time such as this, whether it's thematic or whether it's an actual project or a number of pieces or types of repertoire, levels of repertoire for your respective groups. If you just go through just maybe each a minute and just share briefly something along those lines. Jenna, why don't you go first?
All right, so since we're planning this virtual holiday concert, we chose all our songs about a month ago. We had the accompaniment recorded with MIDI. We have the click track ready to go so we can like teach them the click. We're gonna teach them how to record the videos. Every kid is gonna have a mic, so we only have to do tech support on one type of microphone. We're doing stuff that feels good. Okay, so Motab, Lovely Carol, piece by Michael McGlynn. We're starting the year with a little 2-part Charpentier with like a guest person who's going to coach us on early music and phrasing. A person who'd be way too busy to help us, by the way, if the pandemic wasn't happening. Some Arneson, a little Eschenwald. I have 2 kids who sang O Salutaris for me when they were in 8th grade, like whiz bang amazing kids, and they're graduating this year. So we're gonna virtually showcase them as the awesome soloists that they are. And then again, like I think singing something familiar is gonna feel good. I'm usually not someone to program repeat things, but since some of the kids have some familiarity with these pieces and these composers, they just feel so good to sing. That's where my mind and my heart are right now. But then I've stacked the spring. So we got Gavin Bryars lined up, Macmillan, Caroline Shaw. They're going to be hungry. And I have to introduce these pieces in the fall to get them excited about what's coming. So it's the now and what's manageable with this virtual landscape for us. But then there's this whole other, but look what's coming. And I think that that's just a huge part of my job.
Great, thanks, Jenna. Awesome. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, Jenna's model here for something early and then starting to plan for deeper into the year is very similar to what we're thinking. So you mentioned our holiday goals early, trying to get something recorded very early on. We at the university, we have one of our choirs is supposed to be performing at National ACDA if the conference happens, and another one of our choirs is supposed to be performing at PMEA if it happens in person. So we do need to start preparing for those performances, and should they end up not happening in person but turn into some sort of digital virtual conference, we need something to show for that as well. So we will be starting on those things early. As far as kind of style of repertoire, I think I'm looking for things often with long lines, with long melodic lines, things that are easier to teach tone building than things that are really texty, right? The more texty they get, the harder it is to deal with vowels, especially if you're dealing with singers in masks and you don't have the ability to address some things that you as a teacher can't see. The ability to be able to address tone and phrasing and breath management will be really, really important. And so no matter what the level of ensemble is, I'm looking for things with long lines as to meet one of my goals.
Thanks, Ryan. Kyle, take it away.
I guess the one thing that I would add is that we are kind of in the wild west of copyright and virtual choir. And so we got to know where we're going to put that up and if what we're doing is cool. So one of the things I found when searching for Christmas repertoire, just because that's what we do, is Beck and Horse Press is allowing you to stream anything from their catalog on Facebook Live and do a virtual choir of it if you purchase their music. So that's all the Elaine Hagenberg stuff. That's all of the Craig Courtney stuff. It's Dan Forrest, you know. So I'll put that link up here in a second. And they made it so easy to understand. It's like so cut and dry. If you use our music, this is how you can use it. This is how we would appreciate if you could put the names and all of that. So those of us that planned this concert, we went to the Beck and Horse Press website first and started programming out that way. Again, like I said earlier, I'm doing stuff that's accompanied just so that we can all be on the same, counts and everything, and hopefully things will line up better. But that's what I have to add, and I'll put that link in the chat.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, just really similar kinds of things in terms of what Ryan mentioned in terms of long line and things of that. Certainly I'm thinking about next year on what in curricularly my students would need to know now to be building up towards hopefully what will be a normal year next year. So, thinking about those maybe 2 or 3 selections, I just really want to be conscious of style as well, specifically towards vocal technique and how to address that. So, while considering repertoire, something polyphonic, because I think that the format of kids learning these things independently really lends itself to polyphony. And so any number of things that are kind of Renaissance in nature that also avoid any copyright issues. And then something from the American Songbook, some maybe vocal jazz or something like that to get the kids, again, very tuneful and sentimental. I think it's important to get music to the heart as much as possible. And then something that can be hopeful and kind of a larger closer finisher piece. So, but again, longer lines, like Brian said, not as texty and tone building. That's really what I'm thinking most about.
Is it my turn, Joy? Yeah, okay. So I think it's important for teachers to be connected and know about people who are willing to make connections with you. Professional groups like ACDA and Chorus America are great. And I found some new groups formed due to the pandemic, and they've been surprisingly delightful. So one of these groups that I want you to know about is Core Amor. And check it out. It's Core Amor, CHORAMOR.com. Check them out. It's made up of choral educators dedicated to help the entire singing community. Awesome people, and there are awesome resources. And the resources that I'm talking about are the 2 pieces that are listed on top, Sing Out My Soul and Love Is, are by the 2 members of Core Amor, Marcus and Tesfa. And these have been composed this year. And these were available for Core Amor members. So all choir directors who have time to make recordings, to make virtual choir tracks. So through these, I learned really amazing new pieces that I can approach these composers and talk about, okay, so if I buy each copy for my singers, because they are self-published, I could get permission for synchronization and putting up videos on YouTube. So my approach is that, okay, so we could commission pieces or work with composers who are composing pieces now. And so that is kind of like an approach that I am looking forward to doing. Another composer who lives in Manila, Philippines is Illy Matthew Maniano. He just published Come to Me, and he had a virtual choir video that was released in early July or late June. And it was like the most beautiful piece that I heard. It was so beautiful. I just contacted him on Facebook, and I'll be working with him this year, possibly for a commission. So a beautiful piece. I connected with Elaine Elaine Hagenberg over the summer, and she's lovely to work with. And as it was mentioned, that she's going to be starting a 9-week composing course for students. So I'm really looking forward to that. And 2 other composers that I would love to connect with are Rena Ismail. She is an Indian American composer, really beautiful, and who was recommended to me by another really good friend, and Jeffrey Ames, who was supposed to visit Messiah this fall. So I would love to make connections with these composers and work with this, you know, choral pieces.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for these great ideas. It's just a wonderful springboard into what we're all trying to accomplish early this month. And so I'm so grateful. I'd like to leave a little time for a few of the questions that have been asked both here on Zoom and also on the YouTube live stream. But before we do that, I'm wondering if each of you can just give kind of a conclusive sentence or two, maybe something that's encouraging to all of us teachers who are going into kind of a daunting semester. And so I'm wondering if we can just kind of go down the line and share that, and then I'll bring up a couple of the questions. Kyla, we're going to look at you specifically for some community choir ideas here, if you don't mind. But I know a lot of us all work in that world too. So anyway, Jenna, will you start us off?
Yeah, it's weird to give a final thought. I mean, good luck to everybody. This, you know, the one thing I would say is just set boundaries for yourself. Be open and honest with your people, your community, your staff, your kid, the students that you teach, your parents. I mean, I'm in a situation where I might be a full-time preschool teacher, the barber to my husband, you know, a dog groomer, and also an artistic director of an organization. And there's only, you know, so much time in one day. And so normally it's a little unprofessional to let people know your business, but I don't think it is right now. I think let people know your business and, you know, give yourself like the freedom to not be everything that you once were as a teacher and as, you know, whoever you are to your community. And then there are such great resources, as Yoon was saying, you know, with Cora Moore and all of that. And I love that. I do. I love that about our profession, but I also hate it. Can I say that? This is ACDA. It gets noisy. It just, you know, like it just gets so noisy. And, you know, in the spring, I needed to like duck and cover and come up with some projects that like made sense to me. And I put those in that little document that I shared. And if you can't afford to pay somebody else to do a virtual choir, don't do it. That's like 50 hours of blood, sweat, and tears. And if anyone you know has done that, just kiss them, because that is just really hard work. And so you don't have to do that to get through this stuff. You guys, you can make music, you can have community online. You know, you might not be able to sing, but have, you know, a monthly brunch where you get together, you all sit on a picnic blanket, super far apart, you wear masks, you know, you can do it, but you don't have to do all the things that are like ringing so loud online and things that people suggest to you. So just do your thing, set boundaries, and figure it out.
Great. Great advice, Jenna. Thanks. Ryan.
Yeah, one of the things that I guess I would leave us with is that I think we all have the opportunity for a lot of self-reflection as teachers, and what's most important to us to offer to our students as we're thinking about their safety, about their growth, and this field, this art field that we love. And to think about what is most important related to choral music. And I hope that in a way, probably different, but in a way that Jenna has referred to not having to follow every ringing bell that we hear online, the next latest and greatest technological improvement, to think through why it is we do what we do and why we think choral music is so important, and to recognize that much of what we're talking about is not singing in choir. And I think it's worth acknowledging that, and to recognize that what is lost is so great that we ought to strive to recreate it as soon as possible. And we figure it out, and we think through what is choral repertoire, what is choral singing, what does gathered singing mean, and what is what's at the end of the road when we are able to, in our respective communities where we have different restrictions, everyone is dealing with different environments, but as soon as that is able to commence, uh, rethinking through what is so great about our field, and how are we going to kind of push the ball down the field to make it happen.
Thanks, Ryan. Kyle.
I'll jump in with some community choir stuff real quick. So our season 2021 is canceled in the traditional sense, but we are trying to find ways to stay connected, to raise money, because we are an organization that is nonprofit and we need to be viable, and to make some music, to see something familiar to us. So we are doing monthly Zoom gatherings. We have not ventured into the physical gathering realm yet. Hopefully we can get there. The Zoom meetings have been really fun. It's bring your beverage of choice, and let's just talk about how life's going. And that has been really, really nice. And I do that with my church choir weekly. They have not missed a week since March, and they will not let me miss a week. But it's great. Once I get there, it's just so good to hear them and see their faces and chat a little bit. We are going to do a virtual choir experience with the Harrisburg Choral Society. We are going to keep it simple. It's going to be accompanied. We're going to give plenty of time to get things submitted. I think that I will try to do some Zoom rehearsals for those that would like the extra help to learn pitches and things like that. But publishers are also starting to do virtual choir kits where you get basically everything that's needed, not the software, but like everything that the singers need to record the track and a video of the conducting and things like that. So that might be a better option for a church choir or a community choir. If you're going to do a virtual choir, regardless, you've got to have really clear instructions. So like Yoon, I participated in a couple this summer as a singer, and I was like, this is so hard. Like I did the same thing, Yoon. I recorded myself over and over. So giving them really clear instructions, plenty of time. And just staying connected. We're also doing some fundraising things beyond your traditional appeal for funds letter. We are hopefully going to do some kind of virtual performance where people perform from their house. Those details have not been worked out. My just little blip of a word here would just be, there's a lot of anxiety at my house right now. My wife's a teacher, I'm a teacher, my daughter's going to school, so we're going 3 different ways, and there's just anxiety. So I would just say to take one day at a time, breathe, and know that it's okay to say no in this time. Saying no in this time does not mean anything other than, no, I can't do that. And so look out for yourselves so that we can all make some awesome music at the end of all this.
Thanks, Kyle. Eric.
I think just piggybacking off of what Jenna and Kyle said in terms of just setting aside what our normal process would be here in August. For me, it was 7 different choirs in their repertoire for 6 different concerts. And, it was just so much. By this point, it'd have 40 pieces. And right now I'm kind of setting it aside, and I'm going, what's the 1 or 2 pieces of music? Yes, but sort of like what's been said is, how can I serve my students? And I know that as a high school choir director, there's a lot of, you're a lot of glue for the community in a high school and in an arts program. So how can I be available to them? How can I not burn myself out before school's even started because the plans changed 3 times? So I just, I'm just taking it a day at a time, very zen compared to normal. And again, with all these different technologies, take limited goals. Don't do an entire virtual concert. That's too much. Maybe do 1 piece with a chamber group. Really just gauge your projects to allow yourself a real learning curve and your students a learning curve. So we're usually overachievers as choral conductors. We really want to do a million different things. And I think it's a time to take a break, take a breath, and reframe your expectations of yourself to something that you will kind of feel a little more comfortable with.
Thanks, Eric. Great. And Yoon?
You know, thank goodness for technology, because how would I have met all of these new friends and everyone who's asking wonderful questions here? So I'm very thankful that we live in in time where a lot of things are available. So I agree with all of the panelists who have shared really wonderful things. And I will say, ask questions and ask for help. We don't live in a bubble, and there are lots of really wonderful people who are willing to help you. So if our emails are not available for anyone who's coming to this webinar, maybe we can put our emails there so that people can contact us. William Denning said, "The human responsibilities of the conductors are to remain human, even in light of our position or title." What a wonderful thing, you know, and as one of the panelists said, I think, you know, everything is uneasy, and we're going through such a hard time. And, you know, music does bring healing and peace. And, you know, it does take us to a place where, you know, we don't have to focus on the pandemic or the stress. But at the same time, you know, I think because we work with students of all ages, I think just building the community and being there for our students or people that we work with is very important. For the first time ever in my 22 years of teaching, I will not be focusing on performance. Thank the Lord. You know, I'm going to be focusing on the people. I'm going to be focusing on really good way to rehearse with masks on, which is going to be very hard. So do I think that I'm going to be rehearsing for 80 minutes? No, I don't. 35 minutes tops, probably outside. And I will supplement it with different kinds of learning and connecting with composers and composing music, or really focusing on quality singing and learning to sing really well outside and on our own. So I think there are things, and I think, you know, I can still hope, and we can all hope that this will pass, and you know, that we being there for our people is #1 priority. So thank you for this time that I got to learn a lot of things through everyone here. So
Great.
thanks.
Thanks, Yoon. And thank you to all of our panelists truly tonight for sharing their ideas. And we're just so grateful to have some ideas flowing. And so thank you so much. We've answered a lot of the questions back individually in the Q&A chat. If anyone does have questions, feel free to type them, or at the same time, all of our registered attendees will get a copy of this webinar, and it will have the emails of all of these panelists. So you can feel free to reach out to these 5 for more resources if you need to. And so hopefully that will be helpful to you as you go forth this month and get started with some new things. So that's our time for tonight. Again, panelists, thank you so much for your generous ideas, and we wish you all the best as we attempt the start to this new school year. And we'll hopefully see you on the other side come November or December. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!